Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive on something that's got everyone talking: Starbucks.
Ooh, Starbucks.
Their recent performance and what their new CEO, Brian Niccol, has planned to try to get things back on track. We've got analyst reports. We've got that preliminary earnings release that seems to have spooked some people.
Yeah.
And we've got some interesting commentary straight from Niccol himself. So pretty interesting mix.
Yeah, it is. And it seems like, this is more than just your average quarterly report.
Yeah.
This is a company at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Like declining sales for 3 quarters in a row.
Yeah.
A new CEO.
Yeah.
Where do they go from here? It's a really interesting time for them.
Yeah, and those Q4 numbers, they definitely raised some eyebrows.
For sure.
So globally, same-store sales are down 7%.
Okay.
In the U.S., down 6%.
Okay.
But here's the thing that I thought was really interesting. A 10% drop in U.S. transactions.
Wow.
So that's a lot fewer people actually going to Starbucks.
Yeah, that is a lot. So, fewer transactions.
Yeah.
That suggests that something bigger is going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, are people just buying less coffee?
Yeah.
Are they choosing to spend their money elsewhere?
Yeah.
It could be, there's a lot of things. It could be the economy.
Yeah.
It could be that the competition's getting more intense.
Yeah.
Or maybe people just aren't happy with the direction Starbucks has been taking.
Right. And then there's China.
Mm-hmm.
And Starbucks had, really big plans for China. They saw a 14% decline in comparable store sales.
Wow. That's rough.
Yeah, and they're pointing to increased competition and also just a weaker economy in China.
Yeah, and this is especially worrisome, because China was such a key part of their growth strategy.
Yeah.
So to really understand what's happening, you got to look at the specifics, right? Like they're going up against some real heavy hitters over there, local chains like Luckin Coffee.
Yeah.
And these guys are expanding really aggressively, offering big discounts, which in an environment where people are more concerned about price, that's going to be attractive.
Yeah, and then probably the biggest piece of news, the thing that really sent investors, running for the hills, Starbucks suspended their guidance for fiscal year 2025.
Yeah, that is a big move.
Yeah.
It's bold, but honestly, it's not totally unexpected.
Okay.
When you have a new CEO coming in, especially when a company's really looking to make some serious changes,
Okay.
it kind of makes sense to hit pause on those projections.
Right.
So basically, suspending guidance gives Niccol some breathing room.
Okay.
He can, figure out what's going on, develop a new strategy without being tied to all those previous targets.
Okay.
Like, think about it. Guidance usually includes stuff like projected revenue, earnings per share, even new store openings.
Yeah.
So by hitting pause, you're saying, okay, the old playbook may not work.
Right. Interesting. And speaking of Niccol, he's not really a stranger to shaking things up. He was behind Chipotle's big comeback.
Oh,
that whole food with integrity thing?
Yeah.
And let's not forget Taco Bell.
Yeah.
He pretty much single-handedly made Taco Bell cool again.
That's true.
So now he's set his sights on Starbucks. What do you think?
It's fascinating. He's really known for his ability to connect with customers, refresh brands, drive growth. But coffee's different.
Yeah.
It's not burritos or tacos.
Yeah.
The question is, can he translate that success
Yeah.
to a company like Starbucks, which is already, kind of embedded in our culture?
So his plan, which he's calling Back to Starbucks, does sound, kind of promising.
Yeah.
He really seems to be emphasizing a return to what made Starbucks, this phenomenon in the first place.
Yeah.
That welcoming coffee house atmosphere, the focus on handcrafted coffee.
Right.
That feeling that Starbucks isn't just a place to grab a coffee, it's an experience.
Right. It's more than just a caffeine fix. It's like, Starbucks may have strayed a bit from its core values.
Yeah.
Gotten a little too caught up in efficiency,
Yeah.
mobile ordering.
Yeah.
And lost sight of that human connection that made them so special.
Right.
He seems to be betting on rekindling that emotional bond with customers.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You remember that whole third place concept Howard Schultz always talked about?
Yes.
That space between work and home.
Yes.
Where people can connect and relax. It feels like Niccol is trying to bring that back.
Absolutely.
So less about, grabbing your mobile order and running out the door, and more about, having your latte and actually talking to somebody.
Exactly. Exactly. And to do that, he has to create an environment that encourages people to actually stay. He has to figure out, okay, why did people fall in love with Starbucks in the first place?
Yeah.
And how do we recapture that magic in a world that's become so obsessed with speed and convenience?
Yeah.
It's a tall order, but, it's an interesting challenge.
Yeah. And, he does seem to be acknowledging that Starbucks has become, kind of complicated.
Yeah, complicated.
Yeah.
And, maybe that complexity has been turning customers off.
Yeah.
I mean, in some of his comments, Nickel actually talked about, simplifying the experience, making it easier to just be a Starbucks customer.
Yeah.
Like, maybe somewhere along the line, they made it harder to just enjoy a cup of coffee.
Right. Right. And of course, fewer visits equals lower sales.
Exactly.
So simplifying things could be key to getting people back in the habit of going to Starbucks, choosing Starbucks.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like?
Well, let's get into the specifics
Okay.
of Nickel's Back to Starbucks plan.
Yeah.
He's got some, I think, concrete ideas about how to streamline things,
Okay.
both for customers and employees. It's about stripping away the excess.
Yeah.
And getting back to the heart of what made them great.
All right. Are you ready to dissect those details?
Let's do it.
All right. So let's get into this Back to Starbucks plan.
Okay.
Menu simplification seems like a good place to start.
Have you seen their menu boards lately? I mean, it's overwhelming.
It is a lot to process. You practically need a decoder ring to figure out what you want.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that he's focusing on this because, think about it. Too much choice can actually be overwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
You walk in, you're faced with like a wall of options. You start second guessing yourself. It's decision fatigue.
Yeah.
And that can actually lead to a less satisfying experience.
So wait, so you're saying that streamlining the menu actually makes people happier?
Exactly. By making things simpler, you can, streamline the ordering process, reduce wait times, and maybe, even just highlight those classic drinks.
Okay.
The things that made Starbucks in the first place. It's like clearing out the clutter.
Right, yeah.
So that those core offerings can shine through.
I wonder what that would look like in practice.
Fewer Frappuccino flavors, maybe simplify the seasonal offerings.
Right, because it feels like every other week there's a new, pumpkin spice latte. Or, whatever the seasonal flavor is.
Yeah.
It's true. They definitely have embraced that kind of limited time offer strategy.
Yeah.
Which, it can be exciting.
Yeah.
But it can also lead to this menu bloat.
Right, yes.
So if they pare back those seasonal offerings and focus on a few really special drinks, I think that could actually create, a sense of anticipation, a little bit of exclusivity.
Yeah.
And it would definitely make the baristas' lives easier.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of baristas, Nickel also talked about addressing staffing issues, especially during, the morning rush.
Yeah, that morning rush is brutal.
Oh, tell me about it. I've been that person stuck in line for 20 minutes just waiting for a coffee.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how he's connecting this back to the customer experience, right? Like, if stores are properly staffed, those baristas can actually focus on making good drinks.
Yeah.
And the line moves more smoothly. It creates, a more positive experience for everyone.
So fewer frazzled baristas and happier customers. Sounds like a win-win to me.
Definitely a win-win. And it goes back to that third place concept.
Yeah.
If the atmosphere is calmer, more welcoming, people are more likely to actually stick around.
Yeah, totally. He also mentioned pricing. And we know that Starbucks is not exactly, budget friendly.
Not really. Not compared to, some of those new chains popping up.
Right. And it raises this really interesting question. Can Starbucks still be Starbucks? Can they still be seen as premium?
Yeah.
But also, be a good value.
Right. It's a tough balance.
It is.
Especially now when everyone's watching their wallets.
Right. Maybe it's not about slashing prices, but it's about making sure that you're getting what you pay for, right?
Exactly. It's like, okay, you might be paying a little more, but the experience is going to reflect that.
Right.
It's the ambiance, it's the service, it's the whole package. It's not just about the coffee.
Okay, so it sounds like, Nickel is trying to cover all the bases. Coffee quality, customer service, the atmosphere, pricing. It's a comprehensive approach, but, is it going to work?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And to answer that, we have to understand what customers want.
Yeah.
Like, have their tastes changed?
Yeah.
Are their priorities different now?
Yeah.
And how does Starbucks even fit into their lives?
In this constantly changing coffee landscape.
Yeah, because it's not just about winning back, the loyal Starbucks fans who maybe have gone elsewhere.
Right.
It's about attracting new customers.
Right.
Especially younger coffee drinkers.
Yeah, the ones who are into, the Instagrammable coffee shops.
Exactly. Nickel has to find a way to bridge that gap, appeal to those who want something new, something trendy,
Okay.
while still, staying true to the things that made Starbucks, well, Starbucks.
Okay, so we talked about, the main points of the Back to Starbucks plan, which is simplifying the menu, improving that morning rush experience, focusing on that third place atmosphere, and pricing. It sounds good, but how does it actually play out in the real world?
Right. Well, to get a sense of that, I think we need to look beyond the company itself and what they're saying.
Okay.
We need to hear from the people who watch Starbucks really closely.
Okay.
The analysts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they've had time to kind of digest the earnings results, Nickel's comments, his plans.
And those analyst reports can be really insightful. Like, they're kind of like the coffee critics of the financial world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they weigh in, giving their expert opinions.
Yeah.
Is this a hit or a miss?
And in this case, it looks like we have, a mixed bag.
We do.
We've got some analysts who are really bullish.
Yeah.
They see this as a buying opportunity.
Okay.
But then we have others who are a bit more cautious. They're kind of waiting to see what happens.
So let's hear what the critics are saying.
Okay, let's dive into those analyst takes and see what they think about Starbucks' chances of actually making this comeback. Okay, so let's get into these analyst reports and, see what the experts are saying about Starbucks' chances of a turnaround.
It's like a Wall Street coffee clutch. Everyone's got an opinion. And just like with coffee, you've got a range of tastes, right?
Yeah.
Some people are loving what they see. Others are a little more bitter.
So it looks like Barclays is pretty optimistic. They're keeping an overweight rating on its stocks.
Yeah.
So they seem to have faith in Nickel.
They do, yeah. They're basically pointing to, his track record at Chipotle, at Taco Bell, as evidence that he can take a brand, revitalize it and drive growth. Remember those lines at Chipotle back in the day? Yeah, that was partly Nickel.
Wow.
He's got a knack for making brands relevant, making them desirable. And Barclays seems to think that he can do the same thing for Starbucks.
But it's not just about, past performance, right?
Right.
Because Starbucks is, facing some pretty unique challenges right now.
Exactly. I mean, the coffee landscape has changed.
Yeah.
It's more competitive.
Yeah.
Consumer habits are evolving. So while, Nickel's experience is definitely a good sign, it's not a guarantee of success.
So Stiefel is a little more cautious.
Yeah.
They lowered their price target, but they're still maintaining a buy rating. It's like they're saying, okay, we like where things are going.
Yeah, but maybe hold off on the celebration,
Yeah.
They're acknowledging that there are still a lot of unknowns. Will those menu changes actually work?
Yeah.
Can they fix that morning rush problem?
Yeah.
And will they be able to, deal with the pricing issue without, kind of cheapening the brand? So Stiefel's like, yeah, Nickel's on the right track, but let's see how it goes.
And then you have Citi, who are definitely the most skeptical. They lowered their price target, and they're sticking with a neutral rating.
Yeah, that's basically like, hold your horses, everyone.
Yeah.
This could take a while.
And their concerns are really interesting. I mean, they're saying that we could see continued sales declines.
Yeah, in the short term.
Yeah.
And, possible margin pressure as Starbucks tries to balance, pricing with value.
Yeah.
So they're basically saying, look, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
So we've got optimism, we've got cautious optimism, we've got skepticism.
The whole gamut.
Which kind of makes sense, right? I mean, predicting the future is always risky.
Especially with something like coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with coffee.
It's a dynamic industry.
So what does this all mean for our listeners?
Well, I think it means that Starbucks is at a real crossroads.
It does. They're trying to recapture the magic.
Yeah.
The magic that made them, this global icon.
Right. But they're also facing a lot of pressure to change, to adapt.
Yeah.
It's a story that's still being written.
It is. And that's what I love about these deep dives. We get to explore these complex situations.
Absolutely.
And look at all the different sides.
Yeah, weigh the evidence. Consider different perspectives. It's not about predicting the future.
Right.
It's about, trying to understand what's happening.
Exactly. So we want to encourage everyone to, stay tuned, Watch this story unfold and maybe even, grab yourself a cup of coffee and ponder the future of Starbucks.
Exactly, and maybe you'll have some insights of your own
Yeah.
to add to the conversation.
All right. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Starbucks. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
And we'll be back next week with another fascinating topic.
Until then, stay curious.
And keep those minds brewing.
Yeah.